Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Rigel 7. I'm Captain Foley.
And I am Captain Foley. I have a totem that...
Oh. It must be very pale totem. It must be like UV light only, because mine's also kind of just...
Or is this... Oh, I've got two. Apparently, the Captain Foley is so important to me that I got Commander Commons Captain Foley. There's my two... Oh, I guess I'm the other one. Hello.
Hello. We're here to talk about Rigel 7, I guess, which is like, you know, a thing that happened to Captain Pike, and
To Captain
had him
Pike.
so shaken. Yeah, it had him so shaken up in the cage that he wanted to kind of quit, and was having a little bit of an issue with leading people to their deaths.
It was so dramatic he was prescribed booze by his doctor.
Yeah, Dr. Boyce, yeah.
Yeah. And just for clarity, guys, if you have to watch this episode several times to remember it, feel free, okay? Don't have any shame in the Rigelian influence. Just put it on repeat. It's fine.
Yeah, you'll eventually get the gist of it.
Yeah.
You might forget stuff, but...
Oh, well, emotionally, once you connect to it, you'll remember. So just in the background. Yeah, I mean, how did you feel, obviously, Stuart, when you knew this was the first... And it is the first flashback of the cage sequence. So it is ostensibly the first new alien planet after the first alien planet. In Trek history.
Yeah. I thought it was actually kind of fun that they did this. And they did explain that, yes, it happened 5 years ago. So a lot of people are still confused and think the cage is coming up after Strange New Worlds. And that's not the case at all. So that's answered here. And then we get to see the fallout and kind of get an explanation as to what happened. Like only a 4-hour landing party and everything went wrong. And Spock was bleeding out and they thought they lost 3 crew members. Spoilers, it's only 2. And you kind of get a feel for the cluster, what F that was this mission. So I actually really liked it. I liked that it added context to it, and going back to see the planet was quite interesting. So,
I mean, the only issue is that this is 1,000 times grander as a storyline and a sci-fi storyline than what we saw in the episode of Cage. You watch them back to back, and that's just they went to medieval castle, right? So it added, but it made it feel as if there was the Titanic iceberg on top and this giant thing underneath. Now, luckily, it's a really fun sci-fi concept, but it is meant to be the same planet, the same castle. This is the same. So that's what we're here to do, to compare. There's obvious reference, and of course they've done in Discovery the Telosians and Vina, and for the most part, Strange Worlds replicates things better than Discovery, a closer influence. Let's see how close they got, Stuart. So, of course, this is the shot from the cage. Purple, classic, sort of iconic. Like, I wouldn't call it super iconic, but I feel like this visual appears in more elements of Trek, be it blue, on art, right? This image has been an art piece versus like this scene being memorable per se. What do you think?
oh yeah, this is definitely one of those things. It's on T-shirts. There's like travel brochures and like books and posters and made of Rigel 7, and you see this classic image. So yeah, it's definitely one that is like an earmark for Star Trek. It's like one of the first things you see, and it's quite grandiose. Love the gold domes and all that on there. So
well, and also this presumably was released in color at the time for posters, but it was released in black and white. So this is why it's so vibrant, because of course it's like, oh my god, this is an alien. Well, I'm assuming, but color posters would be, I assume, more the rage in the 60s versus black and white ones. So this is a very sellable image, right? Visually, from a look, we have color perspective, I think. But also destroyed castle.
Yeah.
Both.
Yeah, I mean, it's much clearer skies the day they went, I guess. And the landscape's slightly different. It's like a lake and stuff. But that being said, when they go the second time, it's winter. So,
well, this is not a nice planet, but it's also not at the same time. Now, this next shot, Stu, is the original map painting, which, of course, high resolution, we're seeing it, and the entire skyscape. I just want to put that in as the reference point, because obviously it's not color graded to TOS, but this is all of the full detail. I mean, I've never thought about the full thing, but there's actually more than the shot showed. It's great.
Yeah. And cool, you get to see these rocks here in the foreground. We get to see those in the new episode as well. So, yeah, a lot of similarities. And then a really close moon. My God. And no indications of an asteroid or an asteroid debris field around the planet either. So, not a big deal.
It's interesting that how in this full version with more to the right, how actually damaged the building is. It feels very degraded. The show one doesn't quite feel as much as in the Cage. There's definitely a story there. Although I'm wondering if potentially the domes are what is the metal that keeps the building, because they're the hats of the building, right? To keep the radiation.
No. Yeah, I mean, he did say that the building was made from an ore that protects the radiation. So, yeah.
There you go. They got the hats. Because that is sort of like the hats that they wore in the episode. Let's be honest.
Yes.
Wow, they foreshadowed right. 50, 60 years later. The next shot, though, is a comparison. This is the same building, only 5 years later / 60 years later. Thoughts?
It's not quite as the same as you might think. But this is 5 years later. Could they have built all this in 5 years with knowledge of the Starfleet guy? I don't know. It just seems like an odd choice. I wish you would have seen, like, behind this little offset more of these classic domes. Like, this is the other side of the picture that is kind of cut off in the original one, because I don't think that they would be building like skyscraper style things. You know, it just doesn't feel like they'd be building onto the castle.
I'm assuming that the Stranger Worlds one became a literal skyscraper because they knew most of the episode they were taking place far away. If it was a similar sort of 4-story, it would be unimpressive in every shot. So I assume that's the only reason, because clearly they're not the same building. Aesthetically, visually. Now that's from the literal perspective, right? However, what I like about this is that the way they framed the thing in the cage, there's clearly more to it to the right. If the spire is just to the right of it, then these banisters do actually look like the edge portion of the new building. That I could see being like it's as if the cameraman ignored the giant 50s. Like, what a thing to not get focus on. But I could see some fan artist extending this, give it the skyscraper, and then it would be significantly closer, significantly. So I that's a giant caveat. But if you take that into account, like, okay, the edge closer, right?
It could be an explanation too that it's actually a different building, but I really don't think that. It's implied that it's the palace. It's the one that's important. It's the same one. So,
well, that's the odd thing about the society. It can't work, right? Everybody outside forgets and then dies. They haven't got enough memory to even form new bonds with people to have kids. Like that, you know, people just die, as the guy said with his child. Like, there's nothing there. And yet all we see in the inside of the building is just some guards and the main guy living in a chapel. There's no society there.
Hall, yeah.
And it's ice as well. Where are the farms? There's no sense of anything. They didn't give us any real societal feel, except, you know, hey, the thing happened years ago. I've got 100 people in this castle. We're going to die of old age, whatever. At least I've got comfortability and memories. And everyone else kind of minds rock to do something. Like, they did not go beyond the little subset of a society. I can't even picture what it's going to be beyond this walls, right?
Yeah. The main hall was nice and all, but we would like to know more about what happens, because apparently for thousands of years this has been happening. Yet the guy said he had a kid. Like, they're obviously maintaining their civilization somehow. Do they get special, permission to come to the palace and fall in love with somebody, have a baby, and then get kicked back out to forget again? Because it just seems weird that you'd be hooking up when you forget every night.
My assumption is probably that the people we see are actually all the prisoners, political prisoners, and every single building there are more buildings around this. They're all made of the same thing. They'd have to be, right? As long as you get home before nightfall, you're fine. Everyone lives indoors, and all the prisoners do manual labor outside.
I'd buy that.
But none of that's in the episode, right? And none of that's the scale of the thing. There should have been a town next to it. Very odd. And it would have been very cool, actually, if they'd said, we're bringing food in from Sector 7. And because clearly, if you build a skyscraper this big, this is far beyond medieval architecture, which is the level they have. And even guy from future, does he know how concrete's made? Does he remember the formula? Does he know what the minerals look like? Like, if it's a security guy, he wouldn't have all the knowledge of everything else. If he's a scientist, maybe, or engineer, maybe. But I think he's wearing red, which I guess is, could be either, I suppose. But he doesn't necessarily know everything, if Julian Bashir lands in medieval Earth, he ain't building them space travel. He ain't necessarily building them skyscrapers. Like those skills
Well,
aren't
that's the thing, though.
all
He had a
transferable.
tricorder. Who knows what information is stored on the tricorder?
That's
Like,
true.
there could be a lot on there. So,
But then how do you find the minerals? And you can't go too far out because everyone's memories get wiped. So society doesn't work super well. Let's say if caves under the ground. But anyway, the next shot though is the portcullis, because we do get a couple of close-ups. Now this thing, now some parallels. When you remove the skyscraper element, parallels, Stuart, parallels. Not the episode of
Yeah.
TNG.
there you can see a lot of those spires and spikes I was talking about. And yeah, both of the gates look similar.
Very similar. Yeah.
The shape of the gate's a little different, a little more elongated, but that's fine. And it looks cool with the Starfleet emblem or the Stealth Delta, I gotta say. But yeah, even the texture of the brick looks different. Like, I wish they would have kept a little bit more in line with the original, which seemed like a smoother look. And like you say, it's quite damaged on the one side. It's all cracked and burned, and it almost looks deserted. So
Well, yeah, that was definitely the vibe, from Cage. But this certainly shows they did. I mean, there's only so much of this building to take, but they did take all the small details. Then they said make it a skyscraper. But hey, good for them, right? There's only so much, and this is a great visual, whatever. I probably would have preferred a more yellow brick, because the black kind of is very, like, I guess it creates a vibe, but brighter, more detailed, and maybe nicer. Maybe the snow wouldn't show up as much, but do I care about that? No.
yeah, I mean, on the right there, you can see one of the domes. It's not quite exactly the same dome shape, but close enough. And then you got the spike on top. So
I mean, they're as close as the Enterprise is to the actual Enterprise, a Stranger World will do.
Yeah.
So good for them. So the next shot is the concept art done by Daniel Burns, who posts some wonderful stuff, Stranger Worlds. Hella nice art. Like 1,000% credit to him as an artist. He does tremendous things. He's a concept artist. I think the lead one for Stranger Worlds, but Discovery as well. This is from, the original, which they all use as baseline, the concept art to the final. What do you think?
Well, it falls very much in line with the concept art, the final version for sure. Now, the final version, because of the stone color and the color of the domes and the lighting, even the background sky being more clear and not as hazy, it very much has a more familiar vibe to the original one. I wish they would have maintained that to the show. I mean, in that one shot particularly, it does look like the brick could be more of a gold color. It's just dawn, so it's like darker. But yeah, I mean, they really went a little bit extravagant with it. I just wish that this part we see in the original Cage would have been off to the side of this hull structure, so that you kind of get a feel for.
I mean, it kind of is to the right. I mean, I see all the elements there. I mean, as much as you can. I mean, there's
I guess.
the two domes.
I guess you're right.
It's almost exactly.
Yeah.
And then the skyscraper behind it.
Sure.
But
sure.
it's certainly, like, I do agree, all the subtlety is here in the concept art. All that subtlety is lost in the other shot. It's one colour, the domes don't pop, you can't see the portcullis. This middle one, I think, I would have honestly shrunk it by half, scale-wise. I could have they doubled the height, because he's sci-fi man. This is 30, 40 stories. This is ridiculous, right? But it's the vibe here is really close. Although I do wish they kept the blue striping, because that would have been a nice motif to maintain. Because currently it's gold and then the grey. But really nice art, and I really like the mountains and.
Yeah, actually, if you zoom in on that one area to the right that you were talking about, and kind of fill the screen with it, it's very similar in vibe to. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Because that's the thing, right? You take what's there and you extemporize, and that's what they did. It didn't come across in the way that it could have.
Yeah,
and it's also
they had the right idea though, like for
Daniel
sure.
had the right idea.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
No, it's lovely. And hey, it's always nice to see, because a lot of times in modern Trek, the final people sort of make their own spin on something to an nth degree. That is such a faithful one-to-one of concept art, which is nice to see, because that's been approved. That's gone through the artist's hands. Then people should recreate it versus change it because they like it. Like, well done him for getting such a very close recreation.
And I think they did actually for that concept art. It looks like, so the original one to the left, you see the lake, right? And in the middle one, it looks like they're on a frozen lake walking towards it, because there's no boulders, there's no rocks. So if you turn the camera from the original one out into the lake, that building that's in the original one would be on the right. So it implies that the tall structure is already there, just off to the side. Because look at the shapes in there, and then compare them to the right, and look where the people are standing. There's no rocks, so it feels like they're on a frozen lake, which there's water to the left of them. That's awesome. I think that's what's going on there. So
just tilt the camera, and you can see a skyscraper in the cage.
Now we got to talk about the Kalar inhabit this planet. We saw a brute of a man that Pike had to fight in the cage. There he is, looking all barbaric, lots of skins, lots of fur, just brutal sword and shield, and very tall, by the way. And this is the new one on the right-hand side here. Again, he's got a sword in his belt. He's got the fur. They aren't quite as massive as this other guy, but that could have been like a one-off. I just assumed all of the Rigelians were that size, but guess not.
Yeah, the guy on the right is just some guy. That's Paul, the stuntman.
Yeah.
Versus, Edward the Giant, hired from, 9 states away, flown specially on a private plane because his legs are too big for the plane, sort of vibe.
Yeah, he's like their secret weapon they throw out when they need him. Go to gate 7.
Yeah, he's their muscle, and obviously that the caveat being, of course, Vena's in that scene. It's all an illusion. Anything here could be, except the architecture, which is pretty like that. That would be the same. This guy is abstract. He could be real. It could be not. It could be an amalgam of what Pike remembers all the worst things. I mean,
well, it would be. It would be what they found in his mind, what the Telosians found in his mind, and he could have been exaggerating it.
Yeah.
Just from his memory.
So the salt is giant here that we can pinch over, but I mean, hey, still got furs. I will admit, I would have thought about this back in the day. That's a lot of fur for such a warm-looking planet.
Looks can be deceiving as far as warmth goes, though.
Deceiving. But whereas it now feels now in retcon, it's like, oh, of course he needs this because it's very, very cold, or at least taking what we've got here, right? There's now some logic, I feel. But it's a nice enough uniform on the right. I mean, I like the.
Yeah.
I like it.
I just wish there would have been one or two of these bigger guys with the fur hats standing around as like extra muscle, just in the background. They don't have to be the main guards, but that would have been kind of cool, and have the shield as well.
Maybe have one guarding the king, and then Pike shoots him as he walks in, which is this giant, 7-foot tall brute.
Yeah, that would have been great.
I mean, certainly they should have had a few more cage-isms, like cage laser, etc. Like this episode called for a couple more, but So
that's about it. That's all I had to say about those. So, what do you guys have to say about the castle, the recreation of Rigel 7 and its inhabitants? Let us know in the comment section down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the notification bell icon. Plus, you can help us out in other ways by doing things that Samuel's going to say in just a second.
And keep listening to this bit so that it sinks in so you get emotionally invested. So, of course.
Yes. Don't forget. We forgot. Like.
He is Captain Foley.
No. Super thanks.
That's what we're talking about Rigel 7, are we?
Sure, yes. Super thanks. Thanks.
Patreon! Oh, I feel about Patreon.
There you go.
It saves our bacon. Patreon. A monthly donation really, really lets us keep doing what we do here all the time, every week, all the goddamn. A lot of time. I do remember the time, Stuart. I never forget the amount of time. Or join the channel on YouTube, or Super Chat, as you said, Super Thanks on any video, or buy shirts down below, or one-time donation. Trekyards@hotmail.com. That's the PayPal. Any and all help a lot.
That's right. So, until next time. Maybe you'll remember.
He's got a Foley.
He's Commander Cockings.
Yes, we got it, Stuart. Yes.
See you guys later.
Bye, guys.